Every jet aircraft shares one critical vulnerability. It needs a runway. Miles of concrete. Fixed, visible, and easily destroyed. For decades, designers chased a dream, an aircraft that needed no runway at all. One that could rise vertically, strike, and vanish. It proved one of the hardest engineering challenges in aviation history. Of the 10 aircraft on this list, only 3 ever entered operational service. These are the 10 most significant VTOL jet aircraft ever built. In the 1960s, NATO launched a massive competition for a supersonic VTOL strike aircraft. West Germany's entry was the VAK-191B, a £192 million program developed with Rolls-Royce propulsion expertise. The concept was clean, a vectored thrust main engine similar in principle to the Harrier's Pegasus, plus 2 dedicated lift jets. Sleeker than the Harrier, with a higher fineness ratio better suited to high-speed flight. But its wing was too small, its thrust-to-weight ratio too low. Maneuverability would have been poor. When NATO canceled the requirement, and a follow-on US-German fighter project also collapsed, West Germany pulled the plug in 1972. The requirement was eventually filled by the Tornado. The VAK-191B became an expensive footnote. The tail-sitter concept sounds logical. Take off vertically on your tail, rotate to horizontal flight, reverse the process to land. Simple in theory, deeply impractical in reality. The Ryan X-13, powered by a Rolls-Royce Avon turbojet, was the most successful of the tail-sitters. In a bold publicity stunt, it crossed the Potomac River and landed at the Pentagon. The military was unimpressed. The operational reality of a pilot landing while lying on his back, staring skyward, proved insurmountable. The Pentagon watched. Declined. The X-13 was shelved. Designed for the U.S. Army as a target-spotting aircraft, the 15-4 pioneered the ejector augmenter system, using fluid dynamics to multiply nozzle thrust. On paper, it looked like a free lunch. It wasn't. The thrust-to-weight ratio achieved was just 1.04, completely inadequate. The 15-4B's propulsion system consumed the entire fuselage, leaving almost no room for useful payload. Both prototypes crashed. One killed its test pilot. The Hummingbird never spotted a target in anger. It remains one of the most technically disappointing VTOL programs ever attempted. The Yak-38 is one of the most criticized aircraft in Soviet aviation. But context matters. It was always an interim design, a proof of concept for carrier-based VTOL operations. Judged on those terms, it deserves more credit than it receives. The Forger entered Soviet Navy service in 1976, combining 2 lift engines with a vectored thrust cruise engine. It served until 1991 and flew in the Soviet-Afghan War. Its most striking feature was an automatic ejection seat, programmed to fire without pilot input if critical parameters were exceeded. Not a vote of confidence, but the same philosophy appears today in the F-35B. Poor range, limited payload, but it flew, it served, and it paved the way for the far more capable Yak-41. The XV-5A embedded large fans directly into the wings, moving high volumes of air slowly to generate lift, producing 3 times the thrust of a conventional nozzle. The principle still lives today, directly influencing the F-35B's lift fan. But the execution was brutal. The complex door systems above and below the fans were extraordinarily difficult to manage. Transition from vertical to forward flight was dangerous. Low-speed handling was poor. During rescue trials, a test dummy was ingested by a wing fan. The program suffered multiple fatal crashes, killing several test pilots. The XV-5A proved the concept. It also proved the technology wasn't ready. Heinkel, Messerschmitt, and Bulko combined to build something extraordinary, a 6-engine VTOL fighter with rotating engine pods at the wingtips, roll control through differential thrust, pitch through nose-mounted lift engines, yaw through wing nacelle tilt. The complexity was staggering. Before building the aircraft, engineers tested propulsion on a device called the Wippe, German for seesaw, a cockpit on a beam with a jet at the center. It looked absurd. It worked. The VJ-101 reached Mach 1.14, supersonic, in a VTOL aircraft. Remarkable. But afterburner use on the wingtip engines caused ground erosion and dangerous hot gas ingestion. The program was cancelled as requirements shifted toward the F-4, and eventually the Typhoon. A genuine marvel. Simply ahead of its time. West Germany didn't just build experimental VTOL fighters. It built a VTOL transport. The Do-31 was conceived to supply forward bases too exposed for conventional aircraft. 10 engines total, 2 vectored thrust propulsion engines and 8 dedicated lift jets and detachable wingtip pods. It flew. It demonstrated genuine VTOL capability in a large transport. By any technical measure, an extraordinary achievement. But the operational requirement gradually evaporated. A simpler, cheaper short takeoff transport, eventually evolving into today's C-27 Spartan, could do the same job without the staggering complexity. The Do-31 was the right answer to the wrong question. Brilliant engineering. Flawed premise. The West often accused the Soviets of copying Western technology. The Yak-141 complicates that narrative. It was Lockheed that purchased research from Yakovlev. The Yak-141 was the world's first supersonic VTOL fighter. Its swiveling rear thrust vectoring nozzle was decades ahead of rivals. Top speed, Mach 1.4, far beyond anything the Harrier achieved. But afterburning in the hover created deafening noise, ground erosion, and the constant risk of ingesting superheated exhaust back into the intakes. The Soviet economic collapse halted the program in 1991. What made it truly tantalizing was what came next. The planned Yak-43, with MiG-29 class performance, never built. And the stealthy Yak-201, a near analog to the F-35B, that existed only on paper. The Yak-141 wasn't just an aircraft. It was the foundation of a VTOL dynasty history never allowed to exist. After 50 years of attempts, crashes, and cancelled programs, someone finally built a supersonic jump jet that worked. The F-35B's Rolls-Royce integrated lift fan system combines a shaft-driven lift fan behind the cockpit, a 3-bearing swivel nozzle that bends like a straw to redirect thrust downward, and 2 roll post ducts under the wings. The result, the world's first supersonic STOVL fighter in operational service. Adopted by the U.S. Marine Corps, the UK, Italy, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. Its advanced sensor suite and helmet-mounted display give pilots situational awareness no previous generation could imagine. The cost, roughly 30% less internal fuel than the standard F-35A, making it the shortest-range Lightning II variant. A real compromise, but one that unlocks a capability no other operational aircraft on Earth can match. No surprises. The Harrier was the aircraft that made it real. The world's first operational VTOL strike fighter. The original jump jet. The one that worked, and kept working for nearly 50 years. The secret was elegant simplicity. 4 rotating nozzles steered the thrust of a single Pegasus engine. No swiveling wings. No separate lift engines. No tail sitting. No exotic complexity. 1 engine, 4 nozzles, and a pilot who knew how to use them. The RAF received its first Harrier on April 1, 1969. It served Britain, the United States Marine Corps, India, Italy, and Spain. The last operator, India's Navy, retired its Sea Harriers in 2016. Every aircraft on this list chased what the Harrier achieved. Most spent fortunes trying. Many cost test pilots their lives. The Harrier solved the problem because its designers understood something the others sometimes forgot. 10 aircraft. Decades of ambition. Some of the most creative and costly engineering in aviation history. Only 3 made it into service. One of them changed everything. Subscribe for more stories of the aircraft and technologies that shaped the modern world. 10 aircraft. Decades of ambition. Some of the most creative and costly engineering in aviation history. Only 3 made it into service. One of them changed everything.